Should you invest hundreds of dollars in your office chair? Before you do, you may want to watch this. Office chairs. It's a big topic. Now, ergonomics is a term that describes studying how to make a workplace safer for an employee, as well as how to increase the productivity of an employee. So it's sort of, okay, it's for the worker, it's for the employer. But the biggest thing is, if you have pain when you sit and your job requires you to sit a lot, what you sit on can make a huge difference. However, it's a lot more about how you sit than what you use to sit on. Now, yes, there are some really important things to know. Really important. Making sure that your hips are a little higher than your knees will improve the position of your lumbar spine or your low back. You do want a little curve there. Now, this chair, this is a very expensive chair. It was a gift to me from my son for Christmas many years ago. I will probably never need to buy another chair. This chair has lots of options. I can raise and lower this. I can pop it out. I can turn it in. I can adjust it so that it really fits me just perfectly. I can increase how much this chair pushes in against my low back or decrease it, of course. I can even change how much the edge here of the chair goes down behind my knees or up. So if I've got a different thigh length, that would make a difference. So it's not pushing into my body. Obviously, I can adjust the height of the chair. I can also adjust how much it allows me to swing back. See, I can do a little bit of a swing back here. I can make it so loose and easy that if I go back, I feel like I'm going to fall right backward, or I can make it so it doesn't move at all. I mean, there's so many bells and whistles on this chair. I joke and say it should do my research for me. Now, the biggest thing that is probably the most important thing for you to know is there is no perfect chair. There is no perfect seat that will allow you to sit for hours without adversely impacting your body because of the pressure, because of the compression. Even if you sit on a therapy ball, which I've got one right here. Now, we know that when people are in the hospital, they used to get lots of bed sores, they used to have lots of issues, and now they've got them on air mattresses. And so it really decreases the pressure under those bony prominences, which usually it was the heels, the tailbone, the ischial tuberosities or the butt bones, wherever those bony prominences would put weight and pressure. Because of the pressure, because of pushing in and dispelling the fluid there, causing that compression, cells start to die off. Once you get cellular death, you get tissue death and wounds and so on and so forth. And most of those people aren't very healthy, and the healing is an arduous process. So the thing about the ball is at least you're kind of sitting on air, so it's going to decrease the compression under your butt bones. And because it's an unstable surface, unless you get the ball that has the legs underneath it, all part of the ball, so that it stays in place when you get up and it doesn't roll somewhere and you've got to go find it. So it is going to decrease the compression. Now, the thing about sitting on a ball is, again, you want your hips higher than your knees. So this ball I would need to, in order to, if I was going to sit on it for any length of time, I would want to raise my hips up a little. So I would need to make this firmer. It's a little bit too soft. Cooler weather here, and air compresses in colder weather, so it's a little soft. In the summer, it might be a little bit more firm. So that said, and then you can move your body on a ball. So, if you're sitting at the computer, you can do what I like to call some pelvis work. You can do it like clockwork, where I move my pelvis or my hips forward to where the number 12 is on a clock, and then back to where the number 6 is. Now, we've got a younger generation growing up where they don't really know what an analog clock looks like. They're used to digital and they just see the numbers. So hopefully at some point in time, I think in the train stations and places, they've still got the analog clocks. But you're going to go forward to the 12, back to the 6. And then you can adjust and go forward to the 1 o'clock and back to the 7. forward to the 2 o'clock, back to the 8, forward to the side to the 3 o'clock, the other side, the 9 o'clock. And now we're going back at an angle to the excuse me, I had to stop and think, to the number 4, and then to the number 10, to the number 5, and to the number 11, and 6, and 12. So you can do this really nice work with the pelvis. You're mobilizing everything. You're not sitting still forever, and you have a lot less compression under your backside. Now, if it's high enough and firm enough, and you've got your hips a little higher than your knees, you're going to have better support too. So a ball can be a really good thing to sit on. However, you're still shortening the front of your body. And even though you're not really compressing your glutes, you're still sitting on them and they're not really firing or working. Now, yeah, if you're pushing with your feet, you will feel your glutes do a little something. You are working them just a little bit, but it's not the same as when you're standing and weight bearing. So you always need to get up no matter what you are doing. You need to get up off your backside. I don't care what you're sitting on, and do your nice 10 back bends, your nice 10 chair squats to fire up the glutes, get that blood supply in there. And hopefully you watch the first couple of parts of this series on sitting pain so that you have that information. I'm not going to repeat that here. You can go watch those. I want to really focus on ergonomics here. I will tell you, it does not matter what you sit on, whether it's a chair that costs hundreds and hundreds of dollars, or it's a therapy ball, even if it's the right height for you and all, you need to be getting up. You need to get up and you need to load the front of your body. Doesn't matter what you're sitting on. So hopefully that helps some of you. Now, what if you can't get up? What if you are the pilot in a plane, or you're driving a bus, or you're a trucker and you've got a lot of miles to cover? You can't stop every hour and get out and do 10 back bends and 10 chair squats. It's just not conducive with what your obligations require. So, and of course, if you're sitting on a plane and the seatbelt light is on, you can't get up either. So what do you do when you can't get up? Well, I'm going to show you some things. You saw the movements that I just did on this ball. I'm going to show you some things that you can do sitting in a chair. So let me lower my camera here just a smidge so you can see me better in the chair. So if I was driving a car, say I'm, driving a bus, whatever, the very first thing you're always going to remember to do is to make sure that you are safe when you're driving. Make sure that you keep your hands on the wheel. Make sure that your foot, if it's on the gas, unless you're using cruise control, make sure that you're always very, very safe. That's number one. Now, I know some people do like to kind of just drive with one hand and got the other arm hanging out the window and they're, driving away or their hands down here or whatever. I'm not going to discuss driving safety. That's not the purpose of this video. What I am going to tell you is always make sure you're safe when you're behind the wheel when you're driving a vehicle. Now, that said, you can do some motions when you're sitting there, and you can perform them relatively safely, as long as you're paying attention to the road. And so what you can do is some pelvis moves. And what you're going to do is you're going to kind of round out your back, sort of like a sad dog tucking his tail between his legs. And you can arch your back, kind of like a happy bunny sticking his tail out. And so you can go back and forth between that tuck and that tilt, rounding out and arching. And you can be pretty safe here. Now, just make sure that as you move that pelvis, you're not pushing your foot harder into the gas pedal and going faster. But the goal here is you can do that nice motion and mobilize your back. And it loves that because it's getting that nice fluid fill effect, that nice pumping action, and you're not just sitting in one place. You can also do a sideways motion with your pelvis. So you can kind of do this. And it's sort of like your ribs are shifting to the side, but it's kind of like you're trying to de-weight one side of your buttocks. So I'm not actually lifting, but I'm kind of pretending I'm lifting my left side, my left glute, and then my right glute. So you kind of feel those ischial tuberosities, those butt bones here on Betty Bones here. these bones right here that you sit on, your sits bones, ischial tuberosities, you want to try to shift the weight on those back and forth. So, and you can do that while you're driving. Relatively safely, as long as you're paying attention to what you're doing. Now, rotation, that is where you're kind of bringing one knee forward. So I'll back up here so you can see me a little bit better. So if I have my foot on the gas, I'm just pretending I'm driving a car. If I feel like I'm kind of pushing my right knee forward a little bit, now because your ankle bends, you can keep your ankle more dorsiflex, so you're not pushing on the gas pedal harder when your knee goes forward. So it takes a little bit of coordination to make sure you're not speeding up every time you do this. But you can shift your pelvis where you're rotating. So my left knee goes forward a little, my right knee goes forward a little, and you're getting that nice rotation. So that's literally mobilizing your pelvis in all three planes of motion while you're driving. And again, be very, very careful. Don't do anything you should not do. Now, of course, you can do that when you're sitting on an airplane, when you're in, even when you're seat belted in, you're just going to do that. Pelvis goes back and rounds out, arches, stick your belly out a little bit, and your happy bunny tail is sticking out, and you're just going back and forth. Same thing here, side to side, and rotating. Now, if the person next to you on the plane wonders what you're doing and gives you a funny look, just tell them you're preventing back pain. They might want to do it with you because they might get back pain too. You might help a lot of people doing this. So you can do that. The same thing if you're sitting on a subway, or if you're on a train, or if you're the passenger on a bus, you can do this if you can't get up. So it's very, very helpful. And then there's one last thing I wanted to share with you, and that has to do with how you're sitting if you have to sit for any length of time. I'm trying to get the wheels off my carpet here. So what you want to make sure that you're doing, a lot of the times, you know, this chair is designed so if I sit way back, I have a really nice lumbar curve and I'm supported. But if you're going to sit for hours a day and you're using the back as a support, yes, it gives me a nice head back and a really good posture. However, I'm kind of really putting a lot of weight on my ischial tubes. I'm putting a lot of weight on my sits bones, which for some people that can really aggravate their hamstrings, and they end up with a lot of upper hamstring pain, a lot of literal butt pain, and it's not pleasant for them. So a good idea is to maybe prevent that, and obviously hopefully help that if that is the case for you. And so you don't want to be sitting back against the chair. And of course, that does make your trunk weaker as well, because you've now got support. The body only works as hard as you ask it to work. So if you give it more support external, it's going to weaken internal. So if I come forward on the chair and I just sit forward just a little bit, so I'm not using the seat back, and I tilt my pelvis, it gets my weight off those ischial tubes. It's no longer sitting on those bones. So trying to show you here. So I'm tilting my pelvis so that I'm kind of coming forward, and I'm now resting more on the flattened part of my pelvis instead of on those ischial tuberosities. And I'll show you here on Betty Bones. So instead of sitting right on these bones like that, get her arms out of the way so you can see, you know, you're giving yourself a tilt. So now you're sitting more on the flat part under here. And it's going to take the pressure off those hamstring tendons and those sensitive areas. And when you do that, you automatically create a beautiful lumbar curve. You automatically bring your head into perfect alignment over your head and shoulders, unless you're kind of stuck forward like this. And it's so much healthier to do that. And then you can do whatever you need to do, type, be on the phone, whatever. And now and then do your pelvis motions if you don't want to get up in your office. But ideally, you do need to get off the backside, because you've got to hydrate your system. You got to keep your pelvis from getting compressed for hours at a time. And all of that fluid ends up where it's basically all the fluid ends up being pushed out, and the tissue's not happy, and you end up with pain, and you're wondering why. So You've got to get up. I always set my phone. It reminds me to get up. And then I drink some water as well. Doesn't hurt to make sure you're hydrating throughout the day either. So I hope this helps you. I look forward to hearing your comments, and we'll see you next time. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, hit the like button so other people who need this will see it too. See you next time.